Good American Family creator on that perspective shift and deciding where to end the show. Before Good American Family, creator Katie Robbins had never done true crime before, and she wasn't exactly looking to try it out. But then she started reading about Natalia Grace, a young girl with a rare form of dwarfism who was abandoned by her adopted parents after they believed her to secretly be an adult. As I was reading the articles and watching the Dr. Phil interviews, I experienced this feeling of my understanding of the story switching, so much depending on whose version of events I was reading. Katie Robbins tells Entertainment Weekly, and that seemed really fascinating to me and really true of the way that we interact with kind of any story. We're bringing our own experiences to it. Robbins knew how she wanted to tell this story, with the first half of it coming from the perspective of adopted parents Christine, Ellen Pompeo, and Michael Barnett, Mark Duplass, and with the back half of it switching to Natalia's, Imogen Faith Reed perspective, causing viewers to question everything they thought they knew in the first part of the series. I really wanted to play with that question of perspective and of bias, particularly around disability and the justice system, and the ways in which we as a society are often really primed to believe one set of people's kinds of stories and not another set of people. Not a set of people who are different from us, Robbins says. And that's really dangerous. So that became the way to try to tell the story. With the perspective shift at the core of the story, Robbins and her team of writers also had to figure out where to end the story, given that real-life developments are still occurring. When Hulu first approached me to do the show, it was back in 2020. But by the time we were really in full throttle in the room, the docuseries had come out, Robbins says. And so suddenly it was so much more in the ether and the popular consciousness. And so it was this kind of trick of how much do you acknowledge that? How much do you not acknowledge that? Once again, Robbins focused on one element of the story, the trial to change Natalia's age back. At the end of the day, the thing that is, to our mind, the scariest about it is that there was biological evidence that was available and presented, and that wasn't enough to change Natalia's age in the court of law, Robbins says. That happened while we were in the writer's room. The decision was handed down, and then Christine's charges were dropped. So that felt like the right place to end this kind of the arc of the season. By the time The Good American Family reached its 6th season, creator Shelby Hartley had already dodged the usual network pitfalls: meddling notes, budget slashes, spin-off pressure. The show, which debuted as a thoughtful dramedy about a blended Midwestern family navigating generational divides and modern American values, had found something elusive: authenticity. But in a quiet cafe in Pasadena, a year after announcing the show's final season, Hartley swirled her espresso and finally put words to a decision many fans still couldn't fully accept. I wasn't tired, she said, but I was full. That fullness, of story, of emotion, of purpose, came after what Hartley calls a perspective shift. One that didn't arrive with fanfare, but with a quiet moment between two fictional siblings on a couch, airing grievances that hadn't yet touched the surface. They were just talking about how different their childhoods were, she recalled. Same parents, same house, but one saw it as a safe haven and the other as a pressure cooker. And it hit me that we'd done what we came to do. We'd shown the multiplicity of the American family. We'd proven there's no such thing as one definitive experience. A show with something to say. The Good American Family premiered at a time when representation was more industry buzzword than actual goal. But Hartley's show was never just about diversity in casting. It was about the complexity of identity, class, faith, gender roles, and love, all colliding under one roof. It was semi-autobiographical, Hartley admitted. My mom's Jewish, my dad's Baptist. I have half-siblings, and we all grew up feeling like we were in 5 different shows at once. I wanted to tell that story where no one person is the hero, and no one's entirely the villain either. The early seasons leaned into warm, sharp family dynamics. Audiences fell in love with matriarch Irene, played with quiet strength by Viola Queen, and patriarchal, a surprise return to TV for screen veteran Thomas Bedford, who navigated raising a biracial, multi-generational household with resilience and humor. Their children, each written with distinctive emotional tones, carried subplots that were less about big twists and more about steady evolution. "We never needed to shock anyone," Hartley said. "The twist was always the truth." The shift. So what changed? Ironically, not the ratings. The Good American Family stayed critically beloved, maintaining a loyal viewership in a world of algorithm-driven churn. But after season 5's final, in which Irene faced a health scare and the kids came home for a long, honest, sometimes painful weekend, something clicked. "It wasn't that I didn't have more stories to tell," Hartley explained. "It was that the family had stopped needing me." She described the experience as a creative reparenting moment. "I had helped these characters grow into themselves. They weren't waiting on my permission anymore to move forward." And personally, Hartley felt herself shifting too. Her own children were entering high school. Her mother, whose cooking inspired so many of Irene's iconic kitchen scenes, had recently passed. "I watched the show back during editing and realized I was saying goodbye," she said, "even if I hadn't consciously planned it." The ending a beloved show is like landing a plane during a thunderstorm. Do it too fast and you crash. Wait too long and you burn fuel, circling endlessly with tired passengers. Hartley was determined not to crash or stall. "I didn't want a finale that tied every thread. Life doesn't work like that," she said, "but I did want resolution." The final season, subtitled "The Distance Between Us," focused on physical and emotional separation. Characters scattered across states and continents, careers flourished, marriages strained, and the family group chat stayed hilariously, heartbreakingly active. In the final episode, the family reunites not for a funeral, not for a wedding, but for a quiet backyard barbecue on a random spring Sunday. Irene burns the chicken, Hal forgets the veggie burgers, and the youngest daughter, Ava, finally shares a spoken-word poem she's kept hidden for years. "There was no big twist," Hartley said. "Just a family, messy and real, choosing to show up." Aftermath. When the finale aired, the response was overwhelming. Fans flooded social media with gratitude, their own family photos, and stories of watching the show with parents, partners, or estranged siblings. "I was in tears reading some of it," Hartley said. "You don't realize the reach of something until it's over." But even with calls for a movie or spin-off, Hartley remains firm. The story has ended. "I don't want to be the person who keeps visiting her old house, trying to rearrange the furniture," she said with a smile. Instead, she's writing a novel. Not about the Good American Family, but about a single mother who runs a roadside motel in Arizona. Still intimate. Still character-driven. But this time, she grinned, no group chat. Legacy and letting go. When asked how she wants the show to be remembered, Hartley paused. The espresso was gone. The cafe had grown louder, but her voice remained soft and certain. "I want people to remember that it was okay not to agree. That we can love each other without full understanding," she said. "That family isn't one thing. It's a series of choices, to return, to listen, to forgive." The Good American Family didn't end because it ran out of stories. It ended because it had made its point, and, in doing so, helped viewers understand their own. "I think that's the real legacy," Hartley added. not the show itself, but the conversations it started. And maybe in that quiet recognition, she found the greatest story arc of all, the courage to stop speaking so others could begin.